Please welcome Gerardo Soto to the stage. Thank you. So Gerardo, you're the Director of Innovation. What is that?
Excellent question. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and seeing all the great stuff that you guys are coming out with. As you can see from the video, we have an incredible lineup of very iconic brands. And I wonder who in the audience here has a Stanley Black & Decker item, if you can raise your hand. Okay, it means we're still very relevant. So our CEO set a goal for us to be a $22 billion company by 22, to do this in an innovative way and to do it with purpose, right? And if you want to do it with purpose, you need to actually be connecting with your end users. So my focus across the global emerging markets is really to drive a transformation, to really help us be connected with that end user. Because you know what, at the end, our products can fail, and they do fail. But if we can have that experience, if we can manage that experience, then we can save that relationship and actually drive loyalty for our brands. And I think, in this arena and the changing environment that we're living, this is something that no brand can escape at this moment.
That sounds a lot like you're kind of playing the long game with service, right? I think about this from a personal point of view because, I think, Black & Decker, Stanley have a lot of brand equity. We have a lot of trust in those brands. And I bought my first drill when I bought my first home like 12 years ago, and I still have that product. It's getting on in years, and it's got concrete splashed all over it. But I do, I think if I wanted support for that product, I forget where I bought it. I would go to the Stanley Black & Decker site and look for that. Is the risk here that you've lost control of the customer, like you know nothing about me, but yet I expect support from you? Like, how do you balance, those requirements without the knowledge to take it in?
Absolutely. I think that's where we were about 2 years ago exactly, right? The consumer was not really being able to reach out to us. They were reaching out to our channel partners or to our service centers. We couldn't control the experience, And that is the real risk here, is not having the ability to control the messaging, control the experience for your customer to ensure that they stick to your brand, right? I think for any brand here, the fastest way to lose relevance is to not be engaged with the end user, the person who buys your product, and understand them really well.
So from a products company point of view, does that mean that you're going through this digital transformation, 175 years of history, but do you start with the products? Do you start with the experience as a whole? Do you start in the digital realm? Like, how do you think about building that presence and connecting with customers?
It's all about building a digital presence, being in front of the consumer, right? That's what we really need. If you want to have that engagement, you first start with your consumer, and then you build it back into the company. And again, we have a lot of startups, a lot of technology companies here who are really disrupting a lot of the traditional companies. And we wanted to make sure that we disrupt ourselves before somebody else comes and disrupt the company, right? And I think a big focus for us in that respect is how we use data, right? And we've set ourselves to create what we call a data-driven ecosystem, right? Where if we control the experiences and we drive the best experiences to the customers, we're going to ensure that we're driving demand from our consumers rather than just the traditional way of pushing everything through the channels.
So those data experiences, are those centered around the tools, the items themselves? I mean, Max referred earlier to the RFID tag on every Boston Marathon runner, and your tools come with tags. There's sort of the IoT play. There's web-connected things. Is that how you drive connection?
It's one way that we drive connection. I think IoT is something that no company can escape. But if you really want IoT to be successful, right, you really need to start with how you are going to add value to the consumer who's buying your product.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, who here hasn't bought into the smart anything, right? And bought something and was super excited about downloading an app and programming. A great example is my Nest thermostat, right? By the way, I love my Nest thermostat. But, you know, once I downloaded the app and set it, you know, what else do you do with it, right? It's working. It's automating my AC. But that's it, right? So how do you make an app be sticky, be worthy of your smartphone? Now, I do want to say that I started using the Nest app because I live in Miami, it's super hot. So when I'm traveling, I turn off the AC on my wife. She doesn't like it.
That's funny. I also have a Nest, and I've wondered to myself, is the Nest app-worthy? I think about the apps on my phone, you know, like Elaine in Seinfeld thought about sponges, right? Is it sponge-worthy? Is it app-worthy? And I don't know, like I haven't felt, once I set it up, the Nest was app-worthy. Like the In-N-Out Burger app, not app-worthy, but I like the idea of messing with people. Like that's a good reason to be app-worthy.
Absolutely. You know, I think you need to look at, is it, with IoT, is it really an app, right?
Yeah.
You don't need an app. What you want with IoT is to really get ahead of your customers' needs and, you know, make an experience pretty much invisible for them. But you're getting, in our case, we're going to get to understand when they need to replace a power tool. We're going to need to understand if we need to send them to service. Et cetera, you know, and that doesn't need necessarily an app, but it's something that we can drive through all the digital technologies that we have available.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the challenge with IoT was it was about the device, it was about the thing, right? But to your point, it's really about the people, right? We need to aggregate that data into a data platform and then tie it back to the actual consumers, to the owners, right?
Absolutely.
It's not that interesting in isolation that the 12-year-old lithium-ion battery on my drill has failed unless you can reach me and offer me a replacement or upsell me a new drill, hint, hint. But that requires tying the device to the person, to the consumer, to
Absolutely.
the profile.
Yeah.
So what are the biggest challenges you face going through the digital transformation as you work on this?
I think, you know, first of all, you got to wonder if the consumers actually need a better product, right?
Yeah.
Or are they looking to better experiences? How do they connect and engage with the brand? Because the products, to tell you the truth, the products are good already, right? So if you can build that experience, then you're going to remain relevant and actually drive that loyalty towards your brand. Another thing that we've seen in this transformation is that as a legacy company like ours wants to move into being a digital first, a lot of people don't really understand, you know, what that means. And so a lot of people feel it's a transition into just digitizing your current processes, but you really need to get into a mindset of transformation. You really need to look at all the new, how we call them, new economy business models, and how they can be implemented into your own business as well.
So your job is basically self-disruption.
Absolutely. That's the plan.
Good luck with
And I think another big thing is we're all in this journey of collecting data, right? But data by itself doesn't mean much, right? You need to really organize your data, and you need to have ways to connect the dots within that data to actually make it important for you.
Cool. So I think all good talks should end with 3 pieces of advice and a call to action. So for the folks watching, like, what are the top 3 things they need to think about as they embark on a transformational journey?
I think, first of all, never lose your connection with the consumer. And if you don't have it, you should start building it right away. This is the only way that you're going to remain relevant, particularly in the age of the Amazons and all this online and e-commerce life that we're living today. I think another one, as I mentioned before, is really you're not just digitizing your business. You want to transform it. You want to see what's going on out in the world and make sure that you're not going to get disrupted in any way. And lastly, I think, and you mentioned this before, data is the new currency, right? But I think insights is the new wealth. And you only get that by leveraging your data the right way.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for kind of sharing the experience.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you very much.